That was a nightmare. So it's a little different. Race day recap at Ironman 70.3 Santa Cruz. It's my first time here. It was a hard race. There's no two ways around it. It was very challenging, mentally, not so much physically, which was really interesting. Now, what I want to break down for today is what happened to me as a type 1 diabetic. Had some very difficult situations that I ran into with technology failing, blood sugars not cooperating, nutrition plan fell to pieces, but also what carried me through. I chatted with my coach about it at the end of the race, and he was like, "Everything was great. You look so good on paper. How was it?" Really? That race sucked. I mean, I had fun in spite of it, but I'm going to break down just kind of a step-by-step stage of what it looked like as a type 1 diabetic going through a half Ironman race. So this is my second half Ironman ever. My first was Oceanside back in April. This was September 8th, I think. I don't know the date, somewhere on this shirt, but check it out. We got the medal, so we did it. Now, that being said, the plan as a type 1 diabetic is the same plan surface level as a non-diabetic would expect. You eat food, you exercise, and you go across the finish line. A lot more to it, obviously, than that. But managing blood sugar levels it requires a lot of attention, right? Especially with endurance training. Blood sugars get more and more volatile as the race goes on. So before the race, the plan was wake up, get some food in, and head over to transition, get the bag set up and everything. And based on my previous experience with the Oceanside half Ironman, I knew I could get in some breakfast without having to take medication or insulin, right? So in not taking a massive dose of insulin, I'm effectively reducing the risk of a hypoglycemia or a low blood sugar during the swim. So my plan is eat as much food as I can without needing to take insulin so that I don't have a medical emergency in the water at the start of the race, right? So I get in there into the cabinets and check my blood sugars. They're already starting to go up, and this is from cortisol, right? So I mean, in addition to the liver dumping glycogen, a whole different science background. If you don't know, by the way, my name's Matt Vandevecht. I'm a certified master fitness trainer and nutritionist. I work with type 1 diabetics on blood sugar plans, so that's why I'm more knowledgeable than maybe the average diabetic. But recognize my blood sugars responding to what I identified as stress. I was like, why am I stressed out? I've already done one of these races. I know I'm prepared for this. This is supposed to be a training race for my full distance Ironman, which is coming up in like 5 weeks. So I don't know why I was stressed, but I absolutely was. But leading into this, I think this is where it started. A few days prior, my body had begun shutting down. And hopefully this isn't TMI, but nothing but diarrhea for days. And it got to the point where it was like, should we call the doctor? You know, because once you get past a couple days of diarrhea, your body is very dehydrated. You're not holding on to that water. And it was like, shoot, I got to make some changes. So I went to the store, got some Imodium, and that did help. But my system was just out of whack from the get-go. Wasn't sleeping great. Food wasn't great either. We were on the road. So road tripping with a toddler took us like 10 plus hours of driving to get to the race. And so it's just a number of things going wrong. But race morning, the stress got to me, so I couldn't eat breakfast. I had a single date, which is like 5 carbs. And if you don't know carbs, that's about 20 calories, okay? You're supposed to get like 500 calories in for breakfast, and I got 20. So already not off to a great start. At the beginning of the swim, I always take in some protein bar, and I was already through the roof. So for my diabetics out there, my blood sugars were 204 at the start of the swim. Not ideal, but I knew that because I disconnected my insulin pump, I had to get in the water. So I skipped a couple of groupings of timings. So typically I sit at like 37 minutes, and I went ahead to the 34-minute segment. My wife looked at me and was like, "You're not that fast. Why are you going in the faster group?" And I was like, I got to get in the water so I can reconnect to my insulin because my blood sugars are high. And turns out the swim went really well. I PR'd and got 34 minutes and 1 second. So almost into the full next group. I was actually my fastest ever, which, I mean, Might be because I saw some sea lions chasing us down, freaked out and swam a little faster. That very well could be part of the reason. But the course itself, absolutely stunning. You swim out and around the pier at Santa Cruz Wharf. And yes, there's sea lions, but they left us alone. And it was just beautiful. The waters were relatively calm for it being an open water ocean swim. You're in a protected cove, so it's not as crazy as maybe Oceanside would have been. But after the swim, came in through transition, and I forgot one thing. The morning, as we're getting to transition, before the race even started, my Garmin watch, which tells me my blood sugars, stopped working. So I go to check, and I'm like, well, I don't know what my blood sugars are. No data. The CIQ, or the whatever it's called, the Connect IQ field stopped integrating with my CGM. So I wear this thing, and this tells me my blood sugars 24/7. It gives me 5-minute updates. And that's what I use to manage my diabetes during the race. So without that, I'm running blind, essentially. I don't know if I'm in a dangerous position. So I'm like, great, race day, the morning of, I've never had this happen before. My watch just stops connecting to the device I need to tell me if I'm going to be okay. So I had to reset everything, sign back in, and thankfully was able to get it working. But I was like, great, a little added stress there. So that was challenging. But coming out of the swim, back to the story. Swim was amazing. A lot of great people that were volunteering. Super grateful for them just to make clear pathways. But from the swim to transition one, it was like a half mile. You're jogging for like 5 minutes. You're just like, where is transition? And you finally get there. Like, okay, now I can get dressed. And for me, it looks a little different. I have to get a lot of diabetes stuff in order. So I have to reconnect my insulin pump. I have to punch in some different insulin rates and make sure it's set for the race. I have to then give insulin if I'm high, which I was. I came out of the water. I was 198, and then it went up to 204, and it was just starting to climb. So had to give insulin, which is like pouring gasoline on a fire when you don't want the fire to get bigger, right? It's like, it's not typically what you do, but that's what the situation called for. We have to adapt. And coming through that, the transition bike you start off on a little hill, and then you head straight for the coast. So it's a gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous course. The whole Santa Cruz race was just coastal, beautiful. However, with it being early morning, it was also very foggy. So start of the swim, couldn't really see the end of the pier. And they added buoys every 100 meters, 100 yards, because you couldn't see where the next buoys were because the fog was so thick. Going onto the bike, the fog continued to be thick, and even the sun wasn't breaking it up. So what's really interesting is that as I'm on the ride, I started my ride off with a goo, and then planned on taking in a Morton's caffeinated gel, and then sipping on my Tailwind. So I have 3 different carb sources there, and blood sugars didn't cooperate fantastically. I stayed a little bit higher than I would have liked, and ultimately looked down at my pump, because I was like, I need my insulin pump, right? So for those of you guys who don't know, I wear this thing. It's an insulin pump, and I turn it on. I'll show you guys actually. There you go. There's my blood sugars right there. If it focuses, hopefully it does. Right now I'm 126. I've been very level. I'm going to show this off because I want you guys to actually see this. There you go. Hopefully it focuses on that. All right, so that's what blood sugars look like. This is perfection, and I'm very happy with how it is right now. That's not how it was in the race. So you just heard me beeping. I was unlocking it with my fingers. Race day, the fog was so thick that everything was coated in droplets of water, including my insulin pump. And because it's touch sensitive like a cell phone, I can't turn it on because the other droplets might push buttons for me because it's going to mistake the water droplets for human touch, which means it could give me medication that I don't need and end my race prematurely. So I was like, great, I can't use my insulin pump. That sucks. Had to stuff it in my back pocket, hopefully dry it off so that I could eventually use it. And at that point, I got a notification that my blood glucose levels, my blood sugars, were dropping very rapidly at a dangerous pace. And that's what my watch is supposed to tell me, and it did. I was like, shoot, I gave too much insulin, right? It's just this huge balance that you're always like, too much, too little, a little more here, a little more there. It's a never ending thing. And on an endurance course, it's exponentially more difficult. Now, I saw it was dropping rapidly, so I took in a bunch of sugar to try to balance it, and then my device failed. So the device that tells me what I need to know and keeps me safe failed. It stopped working completely. I was like, oh my gosh, this race, which is why I said this race was incredibly challenging mentally, because at every transition point, at every new sport, it was just another reason for me to be like, maybe I should just go home. Like this isn't even safe at this point. So thankfully I wear a backpack and I've got extra supplies in there. So I pulled out my glucometer, did the old fashioned finger prick to test my actual blood. And turns out it said my blood sugar was low. It was actually through the roof high, like consider going to the hospital high. And so that was unfortunate because I had just taken a bunch of sugar as well. So I knew it was just only going to get worse. So for the rest of the bike, I took in basically no carbs. And that kind of destroyed me, honestly, both physically, but also mentally, because I was starving the whole time. So all in all on the bike, I think I got like 70 carbs in, maybe 80 over 3 hours. So I had a great first hour where I took in the sugar, but then everything went to crap, everything got messed up. And my only fuel source was mortal hydration. So on course, Ironman has mortal hydration, 10 carbs per bottle with, I think they had the salty version, so about 900-ish milligrams of sodium per bottle. So I stuck to my hydration plan, a bottle per hour with salty. So I got my electrolytes and my hydration in, 10 carbs per hour essentially on the mortal hydration, and it carried me. I paid very close attention to my power output. Coach had me in a zone 3 segment, zone 2, zone 3, on what to maintain if I wanted to be fresh on the run. So I was very diligent about that because I recognized I've got no carb stores left. I have to dial in my performance. If I go too hard on the bike, I'm screwed. I'm done. It's not going to work. I'm going to have to crawl across the finish line, and even still might not make it, right? So I had to thread the needle of how much can I push, but also, keep my blood sugars in check. They were not dropping. I continued to give more insulin. Nothing was working. It was too far gone. So race day plan was shot. There was no chance that I was going to recover that. So now it was simply a matter of surviving at a pace I knew I could maintain without burning through my glycogen stores. And the bike itself, the fog finally cleared up. I got to use my insulin pump again. Volunteers at the aid stations were great. And the ride itself was stunning. I mean, honestly, mental challenges aside, this race I would want to do again. It was such a fun course, so beautiful. It was fast, but coming out of the bike, having not eaten anything for hours, was starving. So I made an aggressive decision to change the whole plan. Nothing new on race day, unless you're diabetic. No, I'm just kidding. But I did make an aggressive change. It was like, I desperately need to eat. So did something that would be kind of considered stupid, but it worked out, thankfully, and changed my insulin profile completely so that I could finally have something. I got one gel. It was, I think a caffeinated gel maybe, but that got me started on the run. And the run, unfortunately, was very hot. There's no shade, and for a solid third of the run, at the farthest point from the aid stations, where they don't have any aid stations, so that was unfortunate. If you're listening, Ironman, I would suggest putting an aid station out in the cliffs area where somebody might fall off or need hydration and could pass out from heat exhaustion. But the course was beautiful. I keep saying that. It really was stunning. But it was super hot, out in the middle of the sun. There's no shade. And at that point in the race, there was no aid station either. There's an aid station at the end of that segment. But maintained my pace, stayed to the plan of don't die, essentially. You got to make sure you actually finish the race. And saw on my watch that I wasn't going to match the times that I had set out to match. So I knew I could do better than Oceanside. I was in better shape. But the blood sugar plan really cut me down. And unfortunately, all the issues that I ran into also meant 8 different stops during the bike segment. So during the bike, I had to stop completely 8 times. The first of those stops where my device failed, I had to stop, test my finger blood. I had to put a new device on. So I put a second one on because the first one failed. And thank God I had the spare. I put it in the night before as like, hey, I might as well be prepared, and ended up needing it. But that one stop took 10 minutes. Killed me. Absolutely killed me. And, having enormously high blood sugars, at least for me, I wasn't used to having high blood sugars. I'm usually pretty in range in healthy spots. Means you have to pee a lot more. So you're really thirsty and you have to pee a ton. So 7 stops to pee, and absolutely ridiculous. One of the stops, I'm pretty sure I walked through poison ivy, and I am severely allergic to poison ivy. So there's another mental check of like, great, now I'm going to finish the race with poison ivy. This day just keeps getting better, and really just getting to a point where I was just pushing through mental block after mental block. And, after all those stops, I realized I wasn't going to get a killer time. I had this lofty goal for trying to grab one of the roll down slots for world championship qualifications. I was like, maybe they'll roll down far enough and I can get one. I'm not an elite athlete by any stretch, but it's like, maybe. And that did not happen with all of the stoppage times. I don't know if I would have even made it even if I had a perfect race. I don't know. But got to the run, and during the run, the heat, insulin strategies changing, my slower pace because I hadn't had carbs throughout the entire bike ride was like, all right, just one foot in front of the other. Just keep going. Just like in Finding Nemo, you got Dory, just keep swimming. I was like, yeah, this is me. Just keep running. You know how you sing to yourself when you're by yourself and just in the pits of a triathlon race? Anyways, so we finally got some carbs in, carried me through, and I didn't realize it until it switched, but I felt totally fine. Perfect. Not a single ounce of me was in pain or fatigued or exhausted. Muscles were fine. No joint pain, nothing until mile 11 of the run. And I was blown away, obviously, because I didn't have carbs. I was having a rough go. My coach mentioned that my fitness carried me that far, but he was like, see, if you're in your full Ironman, you can't crap out halfway through because then you're done. You can push your way through the last 2 miles of a half Ironman, sure. But so since the race, been a lot more diligent about mapping out every possible what if with my blood sugars, because in an Ironman, there is no, oh man, I couldn't eat for 3 hours. Like you have to figure out how to eat. Otherwise it's going to fall apart entirely. And I just saw in the reflection that I have this on. Yes, it's been almost a week. Still wearing it. I like to wear them until I do these recap videos, but also transparently, you've done the same thing. You're like, I hope somebody asks me about that. Like, oh, you do Ironmans? Be like, oh, it's a half Ironman, but yes, I do, right? So I'll cut it off after this video. But the run finished pretty strong. Was really saddened at one of the points because I realized that the run course was actually longer than what it was measured out to be. So it was not 13.1 miles. I think it was about 13.6. So there was an extra half mile in there. Many people expressed frustration about this because they thought they had their PR within reach and then missed it by like 2 or 3 minutes because of the extra half mile in there. That being said, somehow, magically, in my race, I actually still got a PR. I thought for sure I was missing it by like 15, 20 minutes because in my head, I was like, we started at 7 a.m. It's now past what would have been my PR threshold. I forgot that my heat didn't start until 7:20. So I was 20 minutes ahead of what I thought I was. And wouldn't you know it, almost exactly 20 minutes in front of my last race time. So a new PR by like 18 to 20 minutes, somewhere in there. Total time, still not super impressive, but I'm happy with it, especially all things considered. Multiple stoppage points, 8 times had to stop. One of them was 10 minutes by itself. My transition times were enormous. I think transition 1 was 24 minutes because I had insulin pump stuff I had to do and get my sugar all set and blah, blah, blah. Just diabetes makes things a little bit extra challenging, which I'm fine with. We all have challenges, right? But it's a little bit disappointing when you could produce better results if that weren't part of the equation. But it is, and I will figure it out. I will figure out how to make this work. This is the hand I've been dealt in life. So all in all, 6 hours, 57 minutes. broke 7 hours. Last time I think it was 7:15, 7:17, somewhere in there. So broke 7 hours. I'm sub 7 in the half Ironman club, and finished the race with perfect blood sugars. Oh, we were back in range. So running traditionally brings blood sugars down for me a lot faster than biking does. So I knew it would come back down. I was aggressive with insulin at the beginning of the run so that I could eat. And by the end of the run, I was feeling a little bit better energy-wise because I had finally gotten in another, I think like 60 to 80 carbs, something like that, over the 2 hours that I was running. So all in all, the race was incredibly challenging mentally, but physically, I felt fantastic. Finished the race, minor discomfort in my ankle and in my knee. And that was it. Walked 3 miles to go get my bike, go back to our Airbnb, totally fine, no issues walking. Was very surprised at my body's ability to handle these things. As I know, because I am training for a full distance Ironman, the half Ironman now feels like just another workout. And that's exactly what it was supposed to feel like. So the take home from this, nutrition is critical. I don't care if you're diabetic or not. You got to figure out how to get that food in because it will save you. It makes or breaks the race, right? But 2 is, ultimately looking at this as a way to, I guess, produce mental toughness, right? Where I could have quit at a number of different places, but I didn't. And in not quitting, I knew that I had to focus on my pacing. And that would be the biggest takeaway for me, is the recognition that because I was unable to take in carbs or calories at all for a large chunk of the race, I was forced to perfect my pacing. So watching the watt output on my bike, or like your speed can also be a pretty good indicator, I guess, but heart rate's better. Wattage is the best. So I was watching watts, trying to keep it between 150 and 190 the whole race, just to keep it nice and steady, pretty stable and relatively easy. And during running, watch my heart rate specifically. So looking at keeping it in zone 2, zone 3, which I did the entire time. So very happy with that. The run pacing was pretty slow for me. I think the average was 10:14. I like to stick around 9 to 9:30, but looking at zone 2, zone 3, I'm very happy with what happened, how it all turned out. And ultimately, crossing the finish line and gathering another trophy and giving me more experiences, more lessons learned that I can apply to the full distance Ironman. Now, because you made it this far, I'm looking for your recommendations. I want to know, what are some half Ironman destination races I should consider? Because my wife, she's like, if we're going to travel with you for these races, it has to be worth it for us too. Which is like, we love supporting you, but like, let's go to a fun place. And Santa Cruz was one of those fun places. It was also her birthday weekend, so happy birthday to my wife, and shout out to her for putting up with all the craziness from a race that overlapped with her birthday. But drop a comment, let me know if there are any half Ironman destination races you'd recommend for families. We got a toddler that loves the ocean. But yeah, I want to get them some fun too. So I hope you found this useful. I'm relatively new to the sport, still figuring stuff out, but I want to share these lessons learned with you guys as I complete these races and learn lessons from them. And if you're a type 1 diabetic, know that you can do hard things. It just requires a little bit more of a resilient spirit and the ability to adapt and learn from your mistakes, which I think can be applied to anybody else watching this too. So take what helps, leave what doesn't, and drop a comment, say what's up. Appreciate you guys. Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing if you want to get some more info. I might be posting more on the knowledge side from the stuff that I've learned as a certified master fitness trainer and nutritionist, because that stuff I love geeking out on too. But consider subscribing if you want to stick around for more full Ironman in just over a month. So we got Ironman California. If you're going to be there, say what's up. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.